is here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin is here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 1-877-381-3811. When they found a glove, the Nancy Guthrie mystery. And that's all that I know that's new. Do you know something else, Mr. Producer? That's it. And yet, wall to wall. I understand. And we have a heart and compassion, too, wall to wall. But so far, not much that we're aware of, despite all the coverage, all the experts, all the former this and ex that, and all the rest of it. As soon as we know something real and tangible, I will assuredly pass it on to you. We would like this resolved, and resolved where she's alive. But I don't know what to think anymore, quite frankly, so why speculate? So I won't. But I won't speculate about this either, I'll tell you the truth. We talk about a lot of things in this country. The politicians, the ruling class elitists are among the most incompetent that we've ever had in this country. The most incompetent that we've ever had. And I'm looking at this New York Times headline, and for once they got it right. Federal debt to hit record levels, budget office warns. Problem is they blame Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, this precedes Donald Trump in a big, big way. We have created a massive welfare state. We've got Democrats that even open our welfare to illegal aliens. They don't monitor it. The General Accounting Office, ever since I was a kid, would put out reports talking about how anywhere from $150 billion to $250 billion is lost in waste, fraud, and abuse. The $250 billion number more recent. And nobody cares. And then Doge comes along, Elon Musk, trying to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and he's attacked. How dare you? The president has, in fact, cut the size of the federal bureaucracy by about 400,000. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. And we had very good job numbers today, particularly in the private sector. Double what the so-called experts were expecting. It looks like the economy is going to take off, just a matter of time. And I told you it would with his tax cuts and so forth. But the New York Times, of course, blames Trump, tax cuts, and so forth and so on. That's not the problem. The problem is Marxist-socialist economic policies are completely and utterly out of control. And I've told you, and Mark Meckler has told you, and others who support Convention of States have told you that Congress is incapable of fixing this. Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. They can't fix it. And the reason they can't fix it is, number one, the Democrats don't want to fix it. They want to spend more. And this budget that Biden pushed through, with every Democrat voting for it, and I think every Republican voting against it, or nearly, was really the icing on the cake. A massive multi-trillion-dollar budget on top of extra trillion spent on COVID. That just blew the roof off the debt. The interest on the debt now is much larger than our defense budget. Our defense budget is about half the size it was under Reagan as a percentage of the GDP. And you can see, as we try to position our military resources near and around Iran, the consequences. It shouldn't take 6 weeks to position our resources if we had a fully, supported military. Under Reagan, we had over 600 ships in our Navy. Today we have about 270. We don't have enough pilots to fly our jets. President's doing everything he can to fix that. He's talked about the need for another $500 billion, and he's 100% right. The problem is, so much of our money has been squandered, redistributed, spent on everything our government is not supposed to be spending it on, not in a free economy. There's nothing there. Now, why would I start off a radio show with something as boring as the budget? Because it won't be boring if the damn thing collapses. It won't be boring if your dollar's worth nothing. It won't be boring if we have complete societal dislocation and riots, violent riots, because people can't afford to pay for food and energy or anything else that they've become used to. And that's what happens. That's what happens. When you have a massive depression, papers printed, so you have a depression with inflation, stagflation. You got plenty of paper money, you got nothing to buy. This, by the way, is the situation in Iran right now while we negotiate, more negotiate, and more negotiate. The findings of the Congressional Budget Office in its annual long-term forecast for the federal budget released today, compared with its annual long-term forecast for the budget released on Wednesday, compared with its projections. Before Mr. Trump took office, the federal government is now expected to run a $23.1 trillion shortfall over the next 9 years. Just 9 years. Now we're at 38 trillion. In 9 years, they're telling us, we will be at 51 trillion. 51 trillion. They said by 2036, the debt will be about 120% of the gross domestic product. That is 120% of all goods and services produced. And that would surpass levels reached in the aftermath of World War II. And would put the most powerful and the biggest economy at risk of destabilizing debt crisis. This is when you'll see banks closed. You'll see seizures of money, and on and on and on. This is no joke. This is one of the main reasons I'm a conservative. Because the numbers don't add up. They never do. Marxist policies and socialist economic policies are destructive. And that's why they keep pushing them. They want to take more and more of your money away and empower the central government. And when our financial system collapses, this can't continue. you won't recognize your country. Look at what happened with COVID over a few, 12 months? Look at the civil liberties lost. Look at the dictates of the states. This time it will be the states and the federal government. There's going to be panic. There won't be a supply chain. Basic necessities won't exist. It's happening again in Iran right now, where they have 43% inflation. People who are in charge of producing electricity and gasoline and oil, they're not going to keep doing it because they're not going to be paid. And, of course, all they do is trash Trump, which has almost nothing to do with it. You've got Social Security that is going to go bust in about 10 years. Why? Because our vaulted ruling class elitists took all the money out of it to spend it on general programs and then put IOUs, paper IOUs, back into the trust fund. And anytime I mention this, I come under attack. This is a fact. This is a fact. And what happens? The government seizes property. It seizes your money. It seizes bank accounts. We have an aging population, continuing money to draw from Social Security and Medicare, fewer and fewer younger people to pay into it. We are estimated to have 5.3 million fewer people in 2035 than we have now. Than expected, I should say. Of course, that means, I guess, they're going to ship more illegal aliens into the country. The problem is they're a drag on the economy, a big drag. The ultimate arbiter of Washington's spending habits is the bond market, where investors buy and sell the government's debt. The risk is that investors begin to doubt that the United States will pay back its debt and start demanding higher interest rates, stunting borrowing across the economy. Higher interest rates also increase spending, forcing the government to borrow even more to pay the older debts. We're in a hell of a quagmire here. I'm just being honest with you. That's why I talk about diversification over and over again, and that's why I do it myself. I'm very worried about this. New York Times isn't the only publication to talk about this. This Congressional Budget Office put out this information today. That Congressional Budget Office is often quite liberal. In this case, not so much. The Democrats in the news media are the ones spinning it Trump, 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 Trump. But the fact of the matter is, Obama spending, Obamacare, Biden spending, massive, massive debt. It's completely out of control. You don't feel it today. You've heard about it 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people warning, including me, at the beginning of this radio adventure 20-some years ago, that this can't keep going on. And the reason I brought it up so long ago is so we could try to address it. But every damn time there's a budget, the Democrats talk about there's not enough spending and the tax cuts for the rich and on and on and on. They are Marxists, economic socialists. That's what they are. And we have a lot of Republicans who do not have the courage to stand up to this. I would encourage you to check out Convention of States now more than ever. Just Google Convention of States. I mean, if we have any hope, and it may still be too late financially, that's it. That's it. On most media, you haven't heard about this today. Most media isn't even talking about this, are they, Mr. Producer? Not one bit. the shiny objects, and all the rest of it. Not one bit. But it is real. I'm telling you, this is real. And just because it hasn't happened during your lifetime, that's irrelevant. We have a massive country, a massive economy. It takes time to destroy it. But the trajectory is clear. It could not be clearer. We're in big damn trouble. And listen to the Democrats. What do they do most of the time? Defend the illegal aliens. Trash our economic system. Spend like drunken Marxists. And on and on and on. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, I don't like to throw wet blankets, and I'm not trying to, but I do think it's my responsibility to prioritize what's talked about here. Given the size of this audience and all the affiliates that we have and so forth. This is a big deal. You see, a country doesn't literally go bankrupt. There's nowhere to file bankruptcy if you're the federal government. You're bigger than the financial system. The problem is it pulls everything down. The value of the currency becomes worthless. That means your pensions are worthless. That means your savings is worthless. That means your paycheck is worthless. So the entire civil society and economic structure collapses. There are no supply chains. There's no supplies, let alone people to provide them. So this is a big deal. The government has created this situation, and I'm very, very worried about this. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, an unapologetic patriot and unapologetic constitutionalist. You can reach him at 877-381-3811.
This should become a priority, and I'm very concerned. I step back and I look at things, and I understand ancient history and more modern history, certainly American history. And I look at several things here. Look, if I were only looking at the positive, that would be great. But you wouldn't need to listen to me, right? We're trying to figure out ways to ensure that our republic survives, that the next generation does as well as our generation. We have to talk about these things. The ruling class elitists have caused us enormous problems in this country, particularly over the last many decades. They have abused the economy and the taxpayer. They've abused the American citizen. We have tens of millions of people in this country who don't belong here, who we don't know anything about. But they have figured out, a big percentage of them, how to play the system, how to get access to our welfare system, our food stamps, our Social Security, our Medicaid, our Medicare. And we literally have politicians who are perfectly fine with that because they view this as a power opportunity, as I wrote in the book on power. That is, constituents, future constituents, with a wave of a magic wand under a Democrat president and Congress, amnesty. They'll call it something else, but it'll be amnesty. And the numbers will be so large that those of us who are citizens now will be overwhelmed. The Islamists have figured it out. CARE, organizations like that have figured this out. They want the system to collapse. They understand what happens when the system collapses, that the Constitution will be shredded. The banking system, the financial system, there'll be massive upheaval and a demand for some kind of an oligarchy, dictatorship. The Constitution won't matter. I'm very worried about this. Very. And so we're being eaten away with from within. Eaten away, I should say, from within by the people we're letting into this country. It would be bad enough if they were just sucking the blood out of it, and not all of them. I want to make that clear. But others who you know who I'm talking about. But then we have some percentage of them who literally want to destroy the country. And they have figured out the best way to destroy the country is to do what? Is to vote for Democrats. To take over the Democrat Party. How do we know this? They've told us this. I've played clips where they tell you this. And you can see it happening in the Democrat Party. At first it was at sort of a trotting rate. Now it's at a sprint rate. They've also figured out the judiciary is for them. Oh, we get good decisions here and there, but that's not my point. The vast majority of cases that are heard by lower courts never get to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court hears about 120 or 30 cases a year. There are tens of thousands of cases filed every year in the lower courts. And the Democrats have done a hell of a good job of installing ideological activists, radical lawyers as judges. So rather than calling them the slime balls that they are, the slip and fall, ambulance chasing lawyers that they are, now you have to call them Your Honor. Because they have a black robe. Maybe they should give them white robes instead. You get the symbolism. So we have all this going on the culture. All this going on in our educational system, now K through 12, in addition to our colleges and universities. And on top of that, we have a runaway government that can't stop spending and borrowing and taxing. Because the firewalls against profligate spending were a long time ago breached. They were breached by the New Deal, they were breached by the Great Society, and they've been breached ever since. With Obamacare, climate change spending, just massive amounts of money doled out to front organizations, to phony businesses that are created for the purpose of sopping up our money, illegal immigration. And so the things the government's supposed to do, like ensure that our military is strong enough that it doesn't take 6 damn weeks to go to Iran. So that's neglected. The military is neglected. But these entitlement programs, the redistribution of wealth, they're bloated. They're massive. I'm not even including the states right now. California's broke. New York is broke. Illinois is broke. They pretend that they're not, but they are. New Jersey's broke. Broke. Yeah, and it's hard to know what the hell to do about it. I talked about convention of states. That is a priority. I just don't see the people and the institutions that created this problem reforming them and fixing them. Do you? Do you see the Democrat Party reversing course? No, it's gotten more radical. More Marxists, more Islamists, not less. There's almost no moderates left in that party. It is a poison party. I wrote a book on it. The Democrat Party Hates America. Apparently that book was so controversial that certain retailers, big retailers, wouldn't even put it out. Wouldn't even put it on their shelves, Mr. Medusa. The last book I wrote on power is probably the most relevant book I've written in 10 years. Kind of explains everything, where we are. Now, you think this might not be able to happen in this country. and you'd be wrong. One of the most advanced societies. A little under 100 years ago was the German society. Education, architecture, music, the arts, inventions, productivity. Germany. And it didn't take long for its economy to collapse after World War I. And what happened after its economy collapsed? It collapsed after World War I. In the Weimar Republic. It was a republic. People who don't learn history don't even watch history. In the black and white films, the wheelbarrows filled with paper money. That meant nothing. People pushing around wheelbarrows so they could buy a loaf of bread if they could find it. It collapsed. The society collapsed. And what came out of that? What came out of that? Hitler. The Nationalist Socialist Party. Kind of rings a bell, doesn't it? You hear people talking about nationalism and socialism all the time now, don't you? What do you think the Mondamis would say, or the Bernie Sanders would say, or the AOCs and the Talibs? What do you think the Tucker Carlsons would say? What do you think all these people would say should our economy collapse? First, they'd blame the Jews. Then they'd blame the Constitution. And they would destroy the country, the entire culture. Folks, that happened 90 years ago. 90 years ago, that's all. 90 years ago. Kristallnacht. What happened on the night of Kristallnacht? It's called Kristallnacht. The Jews were attacked. Some were killed in the streets. People were beaten, old men and old women. Storefronts were burned down. We see this now outside of Paris. We see it in Australia. We see it in England. We see some of this in the United States of America. The Ambers are out there. For the last 3 nights, I really haven't slept. And I know for many of you it's the same way. What's happening to my country? What's happening to the world? Why are we negotiating with little Hitler? They call us Big Satan, but little Hitler. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. To distract from a military action that will take place. I pray to God it is. But I also fear that if the Iranians were to accept all that has been laid out as a requirement for a deal, that maybe we'd sign it. I'm not saying we would. And I sit here and hope that the Iranians don't. That is the regime. Because if we don't take out the regime, it'll never go. Your children and grandchildren are going to have to confront it. They may have to fight it. And then they'll have 50,000 ballistic missiles that can hit the entire continental United States and Hawaii and Alaska. And nuclear warheads. It is utterly unconscionable and immoral to leave that kind of potential to our children and grandchildren. When you hear people talking about forever wars and neocons, these are the lowest of the stupid. I told you, I've been reading about empires in national geographic, but there's other places too. You read about it and then you start researching these things. That's the way my brain goes. Can you imagine telling Genghis Khan, we don't believe in forever wars. We're not going to... He'd chew you up and spit you out. Imagine telling that to Stalin. He'd chew you up, spit you out. Mao, chew you up, spit you out. Hitler, chew you up, spit you out. Crazy. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The House of Representatives, about an hour ago, passed the SAVE Act requiring voter ID. The vote was 215 to 214. Massie, who's lost his mind, the radical libertarian from Kentucky, voted with the Democrats. 215 to 214 for the simple proposition that you have to show legitimate identification to vote. Now, on Life, Liberty, and Levin this weekend, if we're not preempted, Saturday we're going to have Newt Gingrich and the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith. And we're going to have my monologue, which I'm going to discuss this at great length. Voting, immigration, the radical left. I don't believe you're going to want to miss it, so set your DVR, assuming that the program does run. And Sunday, we have a great show, too. We're going to have retired four-star General Jack Keane and our friend Josh Hammer, who's a really solid, young, conservative scholar and thinker. And as you know, I try to give people like that, and there aren't a ton, but people like that, platforms and airtime. But this is the situation. When you have a vote 215 to 214, now you in your own lives, you know you need to have a driver's license to do what? To get into a government building, federal or state, to get into the Democratic National Committee headquarters, to get into the Capitol building. They vote against using those cards to vote, but require those cards to have access to their facilities. You can't get to a single federal or state court without an identification. You can't get to a single federal bureaucratic or state bureaucratic building without without an identification. You can't buy booze without an identification. You can't buy cigarettes without an identification. In some places, you can't even buy nail polish because they don't want kids inhaling it. You can't sign a lease without identification. You can't buy a home or get a mortgage without identification. You can't get any kind of loan without an identification. You can't rent a car without identification. I can go on and on and on. On and on and on. Now you need to get a real ID, right? Which is a super duper ID to get on an airplane. Okay, fine. You need an identification to get on a train, on Amtrak, to buy a ticket. It's incredible. But to vote, you see, it's like poll taxes or literacy tests. It's like the period of segregation when Democrats were trying to stop black people from voting. The problem is 85% of the American people believe there ought to be voter ID. 95% of Republicans and over 70% of Democrats. An overwhelming majority of blacks and other minorities who don't want illegal aliens voting, and they don't want people voting twice, and they don't want people voting for dead people. They want their vote to count. This is a civil rights issue. Your vote doesn't count if it's canceled or neutralized by a fraudulent vote. Now, the only reason, legitimate reason, that you can support opposing voter ID is because you want fraud. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. 215 to 214, the House voted to require voter ID. One Republican, really just a Trump-hating radical libertarian, Massie, voted against it. Crazy. And all the Democrats voted against it. I think all of them. Now, which countries have voter ID? You want to hear some of them? Just so you know, there's 193 countries, 176 countries have some form of voter ID. Now, you might say, my state have voter ID. That's right. Several states have voter ID. About a dozen don't, including California, New York, Illinois, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, and so forth. Which countries? Well, let's name some of them, maybe all of them. Not too much time. Let me give you a bunch of them. Iceland, Sweden, New Zealand, Denmark, Canada, Ireland, Switzerland, Finland, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Malta, the UK, Spain, Uruguay, Japan, Italy, France, South Korea, Costa Rica, Botswana, Portugal, Estonia, Israel, the Czech Republic, India, Taiwan, Chile, Belgium, Cyprus, Slovenia. I'm not even going to read all of them to you. Lithuania, South Africa. Isn't that a majority black country, Mr. Producer? Jamaica, same there. Latvia, Slovakia, Greece, Panama, Bulgaria, Indonesia, the largest Muslim country, Argentina, Poland, Brazil, Ghana, Croatia, Hungary, Colombia, Peru, El Salvador, Romania, Serbia, Singapore, also one of the largest Muslim countries. Notice they're not Islamist countries. Notice they don't promote terrorism. That's right. That's why they're never touted. They're never praised. They're never embraced. And they should be. Georgia, Honduras, Ecuador, Bangladesh, Ukraine, Bolivia, Turkey, Kenya, Thailand, Lebanon, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Pakistan, Iraq, and Haiti, which I believe is a majority black country. And the list goes on. They all have some form of voter ID requirements. Wow. Wow. Obviously, they're all racist bastards. Obviously, they're all trying to keep black people from voting and other minorities from voting. No, they're not. How ridiculous. They want to just make sure the people who are allowed to vote are voting, and that's it. The Democrat Party, look, you know what this is? The greatest power play in American history. The border's wide open to bring in 25 million illegal aliens to fight to keep birthright citizenship. Well, think about it. Think about it. Multiply that by 2 or 3 and you got 50 to 75 million. And the children are citizens. And they're going to vote. And they're going to thank the Democrats. And they're going to vote for Democrats who are going to give amnesty to their parents and their grandparents. And then we have chain migration, where each illegal alien who reaches majority age can bring in up to 17 to 20 relatives. It's over. The Democrat Party knows it because they're about the Democrat Party. They are not about America or Americans' founding principles. They're not. They're an evil damn party. That's what they are. And many of you are listening are Democrats. You say, what's she talking about, Democrat? I'm not talking about you. But you ought to stop being a Democrat because you're supporting these entities, these ideologues, these institutions that hate your guts. Just because they throw a benefit your way here and there, just because they talk the talk of a Marxist, equity, equality, affordability, social justice. Oh, yes. And what about this racist ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement? What about these white racist men who run ICE and are, excuse me, ICE employees who are minorities make up 45% of ICE. And most of those minorities are Latino. What? Oh, yes, yes. Most of the executives at ICE, 43% are minorities. Most of them are Latino. 43%. I want you to look at the Democrat Party that relies on minorities for votes. They rely on them. How many black senators do they have? Less than a handful? How many Latino senators do they have? What a joke. What a joke. Yes. Now, the Democrats are saying, we really only want you to deport criminals. By the way, the states that have no requirement of any documentation, California, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Pennsylvania, they better fix that, and Vermont. But out of all those states, overwhelmingly Democrat, obviously, not one bright red state. Not one. Not one. And so you have countries that are majority black, majority brown. Are they Jim Crow too? Are they? I'm just curious. Jim Crow? Now you want to hear the Democrats, where they stand, where they want to improve ICE. They insist on the following 10 demands. 10 demands as a condition. It's a condition for voting to keep open the TSA, the FAA, and all the rest of it. You want to hear this? What are their conditions? Number one, targeted enforcement. DHS officers cannot enter private property without a judicial warrant. What? So that means if you see 27 illegal aliens lined up at a 7-Eleven, and I've seen this myself, and ICE sees them and they go over that, they can't do it without going to a federal court and getting a warrant. Now, how many times will that happen? Almost never. Almost never. Right now, they're not required to do that. Congress is in the past Democrat and Republican together. Same with Democrat and Republican presidents. They've said we can't bog down our federal judiciary with immigration cases. There's 2 million a year. There's 770 courts. That's it. But that's the plan. To break the system even further. Break it down. Break it. So you have nothing but chaos and anarchy. Break it down. Number two, no masks. Prohibit ICE and immigration enforcement agents from wearing masks and other face coverings. So people can take pictures of your face, identify you, identify your spouse, identify your children, harass you, even attack you. That's a reform the Democrats have in mind. Require ID, require DHS officers conducting immigration enforcement to display their agency, so no undercover agents, their unique ID number and last name, so you can be identified and again tracked down. no mask, have your name on your uniform, have your number on your uniform, be required to say your name and your number in order to destroy ICE. Number 4, protect sensitive locations. These are what the Democrats are demanding of the Republicans and the president. Prohibit funds from being used to conduct enforcement near sensitive locations. Well, what's a sensitive location? Medical facilities, schools, child care facilities, churches, polling places, courts, and so forth. Sensitive locations? Ladies and gentlemen, you got to go after illegal aliens where they are. When Dwight Eisenhower rounded up 1 million illegal aliens and removed them in a 6-month period, do you think he had to put up with this? No. You know who supported him? Democrats and Republicans, the American people. Stop racial profiling. Well, what do they mean by that? Prohibit DHS officers from conducting stops, questioning, and searches based on an individual's presence at certain locations. So if you know there's a community where illegal aliens gather, you're not allowed to go. Their job. So you can't go to their job site. That's another one on the list. Their spoken language and accent. Well, that could be a giveaway. Or their race or ethnicity. So no ethnicity, no race. Even if you know that the vast majority of illegal aliens are of a particular race or ethnicity or coming from a particular part of the world, a particular country, you're not allowed to take that into consideration. So, Mr. Producer, how are you supposed to find these people? You don't. Place in the law a reasonable use of force policy, expand training, and require certification of officers. We already do. In the case of an incident, the officer must be removed from the field until an investigation is concluded. We already do that. Number 7, ensure state and local coordination and oversight. What's that mean? State and local coordination of federal law enforcement? That's not even federalism. That's reverse federalism. Preserve the ability of state and local jurisdictions to, listen to this, investigate and prosecute potential crimes and use of excessive force incidents. They mean by federal agents. Can you imagine what Democrat attorneys general, Democrat DAs like Bragg and the rest of the losers, Democrat governors would do? So you're taking sanctuary cities and states, which are utterly unconstitutional, that are basically segregated separationists. That's what they are. And you're giving them power over the federal government. This is the old Confederacy. Here's another one. Make clear that all buildings where people are detained must abide by the same basic detention standards and requirements, that they have access to personal attorneys to prevent citizen arrests or detention. The whole point of collecting illegal immigrants is to detain them in order to remove them. So you can see at every step of this process, the Democrats are sabotaging it. Starting at the beginning with open borders and illegal immigrant. We don't know what to do. The Republicans are stopping us. We had a perfect piece of legislation that we were going to pass, and it had bipartisan support. 5 Republicans had agreed to it, 4 of whom withdrew, but nonetheless, Trump comes in, closes the border. Like we said they could if they would, but they wouldn't. Body cameras for accountability, not tracking. So they want agents to have body cameras to track them, not the illegal aliens. How do you like that, Mr. Producer? Is this sick? Is this sick, America? And no paramilitary police. And by that they mean, you have these SWAT teams and these various vehicles. Now, you can use those against you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America, U.S. citizen. Don't you dare use that when you're confronting a mob of illegal aliens and Marxists and Islamists and all the rest who are standing in your way. No, you can't do that. These are the reforms. Notice they always use the word reform when they're sabotaging and destroying. And they're saying these are our 10 conditions. These are our 10 conditions. Oh, and by the way, Hakeem Jeffrey said, Chuck Schumer said, I thought we were just going after the violent guys and gals, not all the illegal aliens, and deporting them. Is that what the law says? No, that's not what the law says. common grounds for deportation. Immigration violations, unlawful presence or entry into the country. That's a big one right there. Visa violations, overstaying your visa, violating the terms of a visa, or working without authorization. Fraud, even marriage fraud. Hello, Omar. To obtain a green card, providing false documents, lying to government officials. False claims to citizenship, falsely representing yourself as a citizen to gain benefits or vote. You're out of here. Criminal convictions, aggravated felonies, crimes of moral turpitude. Domestic violence, firearms, drugs, money laundering, human trafficking, failure to register as a sex offender, security and public order risks, national security threats, espionage, sabotage, treason, terrorist activities. I can go on and on. There's a long list. Scores and scores of legal reasons to deport people, apart from them having to be mass murders, including coming into the country illegally. You know what the Democrats said? Ignore all that. Only violent criminals. Only violent criminals can be deported. And what else did he say, Hakeem? The rest should be on a pathway to citizenship. Well, of course. 83% of Americans support voter ID. 16% oppose it, and they have strong representation in the Democrat Party. 71% of Democrats support voter ID. 95% of Republicans support voter ID. I hope this helps clear things up. If you're a radical kook lunatic, it won't matter. But here we are. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. Man, oh Manischewitz, here we be. I'll be at right here. Here we have Senator John Barrasso, Republican, Wyoming. Cut 2, Mr. Producer. Go.
So I'm going to take a look at one of the specific demands that the Democrats have come up with, and it's a new demand. Haven't seen this one before, because they want to ban immigration enforcement from their so-called sensitive locations. The so-called sensitive location defined by the Democrats, which in the past have included places of worship, hospitals, schools. Now they want to include in that list polling places. Well, let's think about that. It's an entirely new provision. Polling places have never been included on any list like this before, and Democrats are now including them because they want to turn America into a sanctuary country and polling places into a sanctuary location. That's what the Democrats are demanding. So let me ask Democrats a simple question. Why do you want to protect illegal immigrant criminals at polling places? What are they doing at polling places? They shouldn't be at U.S. polling places. Why would we be there? Why in the world would they be there if they are not trying to vote? And by law, they're not allowed to vote. That tells you how far to the left the Democrats have moved.
It's insane unless you're a power-hungry Democrat politician. This is the biggest attempt at a power grab in American history. They want to turn the country into a one-party country that requires them to change the citizenry, that requires them to bulk up congressional seats through the census with illegal aliens, and, of course, to add electoral college seats to Democrat states, in addition to doing what the Clownberger has done in Virginia, which is 10 Democrat seats and 1 Republican and that sort of thing. They just figure, like New Mexico and Massachusetts, we don't need any Republican seats. I'll be right back. You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day, because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, an unapologetic patriot and unapologetic constitutionalist. You can reach him at 877-381-3811.
Yellow. You heard from John Bassaro, who was right on. Let's take a look at what Hakeem Jeffries had to say on MS Now. I guess that's Ms. Now. Is that what that is? Ms. Now. Cut 3, go.
Well, the ball is in the Republicans' court right now. We've made clear that taxpayer dollars should be used to make life more affordable for the American people, not brutalize or kill them.
All right, hold on. How? How have they done that? How have they made sure tax dollars will be used to make life more affordable? Does anybody remember the Biden years? Just a little over a year ago. The price of gasoline, massive inflation. You might say food's expensive, but what I buy was more expensive under Biden. But just take a look at your quality of life. And the economy's getting ready to take off. In fact, it's taking off. The jobs report, especially in the private sector, was huge. There's hiring going on. There's expansion taking place. I know it doesn't seem that way because the media are so depressing and dark, and they don't want you to realize it. And the Democrats, they're good at one thing. Yammering. Open their big damn mouths. We are here to protect your hard work tax dollars, don't you know? Were they? They increased taxes, massively increased inflation, expanded the government. Welfare for illegal aliens, food stamps for illegal aliens, Medicaid for illegal aliens. Really? Yeah, they're looking out for your money. They're looking out so they can take it and give it to somebody else. That's who they are. That's what they are. Your money to them is used as a campaign to expand their power. Go ahead.
A controversial proposition. We know that ICE is completely and totally out of control.
ICE is not completely and totally out of control. God willing, my show will run on Saturday and won't be preempted, and you really need to watch this. I take a lot of time to go into the organizations that are funding the opposition to ICE, the organizations, foreign governments that are funding and supporting the Democratic Socialists of America. That would be AOC's group, that would be Bernie Sanders' group, the whole damn bunch, the Mandami's group. They're getting support from the Communist Chinese before Maduro was moved, Communist Venezuela, and Communist Cuba. Did you know that? These domestic front groups are exactly as I've been calling it. There's a new report out. I'm going to go through that in great detail. And Jason Smith, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, held a hearing on this the other day, and I want him to discuss it with you. And we're going to bring the great Newt Gingrich on. He and I are going to discuss Iran. I know he agrees with me and I with he. Why are we negotiating with little Hitler? Why do we think that he's going to honor any paper agreement any more than North Korea did? Why do we think that after President Trump leaves that any other president will have the guts to take them on? Why should we leave it to the next generation to deal with this? Isn't that immoral? He and I are going to discuss that too. You won't want to miss it. Bernie Sanders was on MS Now. Now, MS Now is basically a radical Democrat, propaganda operation. Not just a radical Democrat propaganda operation. Bernie Sanders is an old-time Stalinist, just like Jamie Raskin is. Let's take a listen. Cut 6, go.
In terms of, I got to tell you, though, I've seen that tape you just rolled. You wonder whether Trump is completely crazy and delusional or just a pathological liar.
See, this guy is one slogan after another. Agitprop, we call this. Lenin created it. It's language and propaganda used to create activism. Agitprop. To agitate with propaganda. Agitprop. That's all he does. That's all he's good for. Now, this guy, Scott Bessent, was a great appointment by the president. I never heard of him before at the Treasury. And he explains what's actually happening with the economy. It's quite good on Fox today. Cut 7, go.
Look, this is what we've been setting the table for all of 2025. I've said that repeatedly. We've put the necessary ingredients, policies into place, and now they're starting to pay off. And what's more impressive here is the number that you just gave is the total jobs. There were more than 170,000 private sector jobs, and there was about a 40,000 decrease in government jobs. So, as I've been saying since this administration came into office, we are reprivatizing the economy.
That is a great point and a very important point. So while they've been cutting the number of federal employees, they've been adding the number of private sector employees, and still the job numbers are growing. And that's before these tax cuts fully kick in and resonate throughout the economy. And these regulatory cuts, too. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we know how to grow an economy and create wealth and prosperity. You expand the private sector. How? Tax policy, regulatory policy, or less regulations and less taxes. Less government. You create more prosperity and wealth for more people, not just a limited handful. You also create more good-paying jobs in the private sector. But the Democrats want power and control through centralized government. So the healthier the private sector, the more they attack it. The more successful the business, the more they attack it. The more successful the individual, the more they attack him or her. And they want you to believe that they're stealing from you. When it's the government stealing from you, wasting your money, handing it out to left-wing front groups, handing it out for these radical programs, handing it out to illegal aliens, even enemy countries like Iran. There's not a business in this country that would conduct itself that way. None. None. Bessent is exactly right. They are reprivatizing the economy. That is a big deal. A big deal. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. Liberty's Voice with Mark Levin, our video podcast, or vodcast they call it, starting Tuesday, noon Eastern Time. You're not going to want to miss this, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, you're going to see all the movements, I guess. You can get us on Rumble. You can get us on YouTube. Just put in Liberty's Voice with Mark Levin. It'll pop up, baby. Well, the president today made a statement. It's a little concerning to me. We really want a deal. If we can get a deal with the Iranians, we really want a deal. They really want a deal. If we can avoid action against them, we'll take a deal. And then there's a piece in the Jerusalem Post. Pentagon prepares second aircraft carrier for possible deployment to Middle East. Report. I don't know if that's sending a signal, but my view is enough signals. Enough signals. Enough diplomacy. With the diplomacy mongers, the envoys, and the isolationists. They're creepy. These isolationists are actually quite creepy, aren't they? Very creepy. They sound like the Marxist-Islamists. They give aid and comfort to the enemy, most of them. Some of them are outright traitors. Tucker, you know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Pentagon prepares second aircraft carrier for possible deployment to Middle East. The order to deploy could be issued in a matter of hours. One official confirmed. Well, go ahead and do it then. Let's get this over with. Let's get this over with. Somebody's going to have to do it. The warmongers, the forever war types, are the Islamist Nazis who run Tehran. They've been doing it for 47 years. They've killed Americans. We have American casualties. What the hell is this? I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. Hello, 877-381-3811. My wife's going to get mad at me. I believe she's listening right now. I've seen her multiple times today, and I forgot to tell her. So, to my wife and to all of my radio family, tomorrow we have a special guest, 6:30 Eastern, Mr. Producer. The First Lady, Melania Trump's going to be with us. And we very much look forward to her. I'm a huge fan of Melania Trump. She's a class act. I'm a huge fan of Donald Trump. He's a class act. What do you mean? Excuse you. I think they're a terrific couple, too, by the way. Terrific. Almost like right out of Hollywood. Even though much of Hollywood sucks. You know what I mean. Central casting, they say. And I think that's true. Anyway, she will be with us. We're very excited about that. We look forward to it. That's tomorrow evening, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll have a little chat with her, too. Israel Hayom, one of the excellent media outlets in Israel, and there aren't many. I want to say this loud so it's nice and clear. Headline: Iran secretly executed thousands despite promise to the United States. As I told you they were. Tehran promised to halt executions, but secretly continued killing protesters while misleading Washington about willingness to negotiate on missiles and terror proxies, sources reveal. So why are we negotiating with them? Now, look, I don't want to hear, we got a lot of commentators on radio, on TV, influencers, podcasts. Oh, they're so smart. And they're all over the place. They're hedging their bets. They're hedging their bets. Well, that's because Trump is trying to deceive them, but he's actually going to attack them. I don't know what it means. Neither do they. I don't know. I just say let's get on with it and get it over with. During the first weeks of January, as the U.S. prepared for a strike and began advancing its forces toward the Gulf, Foreign Minister Yabba Dabba Doo and President Yabba Dabba Doo conveyed messages to the Americans. Remember this? I think it was through Witkoff. And we're not going to hang anybody anymore. No. We're going to behave ourselves. Don't you trust us? We're very honorable. Don't you believe what we say? Don't you believe what we sign? Apparently we do. Including a promise that they would respond to initial American demands to avoid a strike. The Americans first demanded, writes this piece, a halt to the massacre of protesters and the prevention of the expected executions there. Yabba Dabba and Yabba Dabba Doo pledged that there would be no executions, and President Trump presented this as an achievement, they write, on January 14, that led to postponing the decision to launch a strike. Quote, we were told that the killing in Iran has stopped and there is no plan for executions. As for an execution or for executions, that's what I was told based on reliable authority. But according to intelligence information that reached several intelligence agencies in the West, including the Mossad and the British and the German agencies, the executions continued, but efforts were made to conceal them. I told you they were going on, and going on by the thousands and thousands. I don't know who lied to the president, but they ought to be fired. According to estimates, this method, well, they said let's put it this way. Instead of hanging protesters who were caught in city squares, they were shot or strangled in custody. Their families were told they died in the protests, even though there's evidence they were arrested alive. According to estimates, this method resulted in thousands of executions, separate from the tens of thousands killed during the dispersal of protests. In addition, the West continuously receives reports about the ongoing suppression of protests and demonstrations breaking out in rural cities and about mass arrests. See, my problem with negotiations and diplomacy is you give credibility and credence to this regime. It is an illegitimate terrorist regime. There was a time, I know it was quaint, that we didn't negotiate with terrorists, let alone terrorist regimes. I like those times. The second story is no less serious. Iran conveyed a message to the Americans through Turkey that it was ready to open negotiations with the U.S. for comprehensive discussions of all disputes, quote unquote. The Americans, as they write, demanded details, and according to diplomatic sources, Iran confirmed it would agree to discuss not only the nuclear issue, but also long-range missiles and the support and maintenance of terror organizations dependent on it. Hezbollah, the Houthis, militias in Syria and Iraq, and of course Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The Americans agreed in principle to hold the talks, and at Turkey's request, Turkey's no damn good, suggested that they take place in Ankara with representatives of other countries, such as, let me guess, Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, that they'd be present. Iran refused, and the negotiations moved to Muscat, Oman's capital, in the format that had existed last spring. Now, Israel Hayom, the newspaper, reported that at this stage, Iran raised a demand that the force building up against it in the region be halted, and that the forces already added withdraw. The Americans were furious about this and nearly canceled, while continued to advance more and more forces. Why are we negotiating? Okay, if it was a head fake, the head fake's over. Let's go. Finally, a preliminary round of talks was held last Friday in Muscat, and during it, the Americans discovered that Yabba Dabba had not been authorized to discuss issues other than the nuclear one, and that even on this, the Iranian position was hardening. Well, of course. After initial discussions and an American threat to halt the talks, Yabba Dabba informed the mediating Oman that there was something to discuss and suggested a principled agreement to address the other issues after the nuclear issue is agreed upon, and a timetable for removing sanctions is set. Removing sanctions? I mean, where are we going with this? Where are we going with this? We first reacted because that regime was slaughtering its people. You remove sanctions, that regime will be stronger than ever, have more currency than ever, dollars, and we'll use that money to build more ballistic missiles and to continue its nuclear program. What are we doing? I'm just asking questions. Yabba Dabba also said he would come to the next meeting with a broader mandate. You know what these are called, Mr. Producer? Delay tactics. The Americans did not accept the position and conditioned the continuation of talks on bringing all issues to the table, but so far, Iran has not agreed to this. They're negotiating with us as equals. They're a terrorist organization. They've slaughtered 50,000 or more of their own people. They've slaughtered 1,000 Americans, casualties on thousands of Americans. Why are we putting up with this? They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. Yes, they have missiles. Yes, there could be casualties. I get it. I really do. But if not now, when? They're as weak as they're ever going to be. What, are we going to send our kids and grandkids when they have 10,000 ballistic missiles and nuclear warheads, and the communist Chinese and the fascistic Russians and the inbred in North Korea has built up their military? That's what waiting gets us and our kids and grandkids. This is not going to go away. Not through any paper agreement, not through any diplomacy. It's not going to go away unless we make it go away. Israel Hayam, the media outlet, has learned that the Iranian deception, we'll put it this way, this can be added to publications about the significant expansion of long-range missile production in Iran, the renewal of activity in nuclear sites, and their fortification ahead of a possible strike, which is exactly the problem when you keep talking. The paper has learned the Iranian deception was presented to several leaders of countries in the region. Most countries in the regions have announced they will not allow the Americans to attack Iran from their territory, but if convinced, they may participate in defensive operations. Well, isn't that great? Our new friends, the Saudis. Our really new friends, the Qataris. We've even promised to defend them against all comers. We even extended our lease on our base in their country. Are we allowed to use our own base? Of course, Qatar's buddies with the Iranian regime. They're close. Turkey, which wasn't before, is now. This is like the Axis powers in World War II. Yes. As Israel Hayam reported, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and Jordan participated in intercepting missiles and drones launched from Iran toward Israel in the war in June. Yes, 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 and it goes on. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There we go. How about we go to Mike, Springfield, Illinois, and the great WLS. Mike, how are you?
Greetings from the land of Lincoln, and thank you for taking my call.
And unfortunately, the land of little Dick Durbin. Now, that said, how do you like when I play music? You can be honest.
Oh, I like music. Absolutely. You have good taste.
I enjoy it. All right, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was calling about the negotiations that we're undertaking with Iran. I, too, am bothered by that. I think it throws mixed signals to those people who are, objecting to the theocracy in Iran. I mean, the president just said several days ago that help is on the way, and I see negotiating as being counter to that message myself. And Iran will never negotiate away their theocracy. They'll never do that. So
they can agree to it, but they're not going to mean it. But you make a very important point. What kind of message are the people in Iran hearing? When they're hearing, if we can get a negotiation, it's great, and so forth and so on, when they know that this regime is going to continue to rape and plunder and murder. I thought initially, as you're pointing out, our response was to raping, plundering, and murdering.
Correct.
I'm not following this very well either, I'm afraid.
Nor am I. And if ever, in my opinion, if ever there was a time that we should follow through with force, it is now. Iran is, the theocracy is in a weakened position. There's a large number of people in Iran who are waiting for us to do something.
About 80% of them.
The ultimate goal is to be rid of, yes, and the ultimate goal is to be rid of the theocracy and all of the bad and ill that come from them, funding of terrorism, etc. Now is the time, in my opinion, and I would like your opinion on that as well.
And now is the time. If not now, when? And if not us, who? This is very, very important to understand. They don't have a Navy. They don't have an Air Force. They don't have an air-to-ground missile system, all thanks to the Israelis. They don't have nukes right now, thanks to us. The people have risen up. They're very courageous. Many of them have been slaughtered, and they're still being slaughtered. And I've told you they're still being slaughtered, no matter what the propaganda is out there. I mean, I honestly, even if we eventually hit them, and we hit them really, really hard, I think that's really the backup position at this point, don't you?
Yes, I do too. We have, in my opinion, we have to take advantage of the situation now while those people are on our side. They are literally waiting for help. The president told them it was on the way. It has to be now. I'm
with you. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate your call. All right. Let's continue. But we have one problem. I got to find the call screen again. It dropped. Hold on one second, America. Mr. Producer, can you send... Oh, there it is. I got it, Christian. Let's continue. Dave, San Diego, California, on the Mark Levin app. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, I have two questions. One about isolationism and the other about what's gotten into President Trump. In terms of isolationism, how would you rate Vice President Vance and President Trump?
Well, clearly Trump's not an isolationist. I mean... he's taken action in Venezuela. He's taken action before in Iraq. He's taken action in Iran. And there's others I probably have missed. So he's not an isolationist. I'm not sure where Vance comes down because he hasn't really been responsible for anything. He makes some comments out there that seem to be more in line with the isolationists. And then I read stories that, no, he's supporting the Secretary of State and the President and potential action against Iran. So time will tell. What was your second question?
One, why is President Trump continually kissing the backside of Vladimir Putin? And two, why is Steve Witkoff still in his administration?
Oh, you're tough. I don't think he's kissing Putin's butt. I think he's trying to get Putin to make an agreement, which Putin is never going to make. He's just not. This is what I mean. It's Putin. He's a killer. He's a Stalinist. That's what he is, basically. I don't mean in the communist sense. I mean, he's a killer. And 1 million dead Russians and God knows how many Ukrainians, and he's still at it. And in the case of the Islamist Nazis in Tehran, it's absolutely the same. As for Witkoff, my opinions about Witkoff are very well known. I'm not sure I understand all this envoy stuff. But all that said, the president's the president. If he wants envoys, that's fine. If he wants these guys, that's fine. But in the end, as Harry Truman said, the buck stops on his desk. And the president will decide which route he's going to take. Whether he's going to take sort of a Reagan-esque, Truman-esque route or more of a Biden-Obama route. And I'm betting on the former. I'm praying on the former, and I believe it. But time will tell. All right, my friend, thank you for your call. You know, in every one of these instances, Trump has done the right thing. He has. And I'm counting on him now, too. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the champion of liberty and true conservatism. Call Mark now, 877-381-3811.
Let's take some calls. Let's see here. We got new call. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on. Here we be. All right, here we go. There we are. Okay. Let us go to Dustin Fort Myers, Florida on XM Satellite. Dustin, how are you?
Hey, Mark. Mega Rush baby dittos.
Amen.
From the Sunshine State, where I know you also live part-time. And,
yes,
obviously I
most
never
of the
get to say
time.
that to our great Rush. But
Yep.
I did, on that vein, want to quickly mention to you, and Rush used to say this, and I mean this when I say it, you actually do have the best bumper music on radio. I love
Thank
your
you.
music. Play it all you want.
Thank you. You're very kind. I'm going to be a DJ one day. Maybe when I'm 87 or something like that.
I did it for 5 years. I did a 9 to 12
really?
show in South Africa. But, yeah, I did, actually. I got
Very
to play
cool.
some great music, and I love music. But,
Thank you.
on that vein, I lived in South Africa for 5 years. So what I'm going to say about the SAVE Act, every time I hear that clip, Sean plays it, and you hear it on Fox and other places, where Chuck U. Schumer is saying it's Jim Crow 2.0. It's like somebody kicked him in the never mind, and he just spits this line out. Like, what the heck is wrong with these people? I don't get it. When I lived in South Africa, I watched these people vote in 2 different elections when I was there, Mark, and both times they must take their photo. Everyone has national ID in South Africa, and they take their photo ID book. They have to prove that they are who they are. And they also mark their thumb on their right hand with indelible ink. It takes like a week to get off to make sure they can't come and vote again.
That's racist.
Something I learned.
But how could it be racist? It's so absurd.
Right. But I need ID to do anything, Mark. I mean, you know that. And for somebody like that to say, it's just absolutely asinine to me to say. That
Here, let's put it to a test. If you go to an airport and the TSA agents there, I don't recommend you do this. I'm not urging you to do it. I don't recommend it. You say, Chuck Schumer said that this is racist, that this is Jim Crow, so I didn't bring my driver's license. How far do you think he'd get?
Yeah, probably out the car with handcuffs, or out the door with handcuffs to a police
Well, you'd
car.
definitely be turned away. Maybe you get psychiatric help, which Chuck needs very much.
Hey, Mark, real quick, I just wanted to mention on the other thing, I love President Trump. I mean, I voted for him 3 times. I'd vote for him 10 more times. I believe in what he's doing. Every day he does great things for this country, but I don't understand what he's doing, and I know I'm in agreement. I know I share this with you. But like the great Margaret Thatcher said once, and I know you probably met her because you worked in the Reagan White House.
A couple of times.
What is there to negotiate?
Mr. Producer, pull that clip. I know we played it the last 2 nights. We have it here. Don't hang up, Dustin. Let's hear it again. It's always very powerful. Go ahead.
As Winston Churchill said in the 30s, if you give in to aggression, there will be no end to the humiliation you will have to suffer. Some people suggest there should be negotiations. What is there to negotiate about? You don't negotiate with someone who marches into another country, devastates it, killing whoever he stands in his way. You get him out, you make him pay, and see that he is never in a position to do these things again.
That's the Thatcher doctrine. That's the Reagan doctrine. That's the Churchill doctrine.
And it should be the Trump doctrine.
And it should be the Trump doctrine, and the president is going to make a decision, and I mean this with all due respect. He's going to follow the road of a Reagan, a Thatcher, a Churchill, a Truman, or a Biden and an Obama. Now, people will say, well, now, wait a minute, he bombed those sites. I got that. But we're talking now about taking out this regime. And the problem is, if this regime isn't taken out, it will always be a threat, a grave threat. It seeks more ballistic missiles. It seeks to hit our country. They want to build more nuclear warheads. They're already building them. And we can't keep bombing them every 90 days, every 120 days. It's not going to happen. And so they're weaker than they've ever been. The people have risen up against them. They don't have an air force. They don't have a radar system. They don't have ground-to-air missiles. They don't have a Navy to speak of. Reagan destroyed their Navy, half their Navy. Remember that? In 2 attacks. When they attacked one of our ships, Reagan blew out half their Navy. Didn't give it a second thought. Didn't give it a second thought. And you know what happened during the Reagan administration? They never sneezed in our direction during his administration after that. That was that. That was it. Same with Gaddafi. When Reagan ordered the bombing at Gaddafi's palace, and he wasn't there, but they hit part of the palace, that was it. Gaddafi never blew his nose again. These are important lessons, very, very important lessons. Peace through strength includes the word strength. And this regime, it's on its back, largely, quite frankly, thanks to the Israeli military. And their nuclear power has been destroyed thanks to our military. There will never be an opportunity like this again. Never. Never. I just pray to God that we take this opportunity and we don't regret it. Even worse, that our children and grandchildren don't regret it. Last words, my friend.
I just hope that maybe President Trump is saying one thing and behind the scenes doing another. I hope and pray to God, because I think you're absolutely right. And this is a time. And can you imagine if Iran becomes a free country again, and you have Iran and Israel on the world stage there with us?
Yeah, and the Iranian people are a wonderful people, a wonderful culture. Very educated, very sophisticated, very much like our country, very much like Israel and Europe and so forth and so on. This is a 7th century barbaric, primitive, terrorist death cult. And they got a hold of this country thanks in part to Jimmy Carter. And we've been dealing with it ever since. The opportunity is provided in many respects thanks to the Israelis, even though they're not going to get credit. Thanks to our great pilots, thanks to our defensive missile systems. Okay. Now, what are we negotiating about? They're going to rip up a parchment agreement, certainly after Trump leaves. Nobody's going to enforce it. We played this game with North Korea for 20 years. They got 50 nuclear warheads. They build 6 or 7 every year. That's what they're going to do. Because if you're a death cult and you're willing to kill 50 to 100,000 of your own people, you want to build nuclear weapons, you know, because they believe they must destroy the West. They must destroy Jews and Christians and Muslims who don't agree with them. They must destroy everything. That's what Muhammad and Allah would want. That's their ideology. So if they are willing to kill God knows how many of their own people, do you think they're going to withhold shooting a nuclear missile at our cities? They are not. And we should never risk it. Not now, not ever. I'm not into this diplomacy mongering. I'm not. And in the end, I pray, I hope, and I believe the president will take the course, not of an Obama or a Biden, but of a Reagan, a Thatcher, a Churchill, and a Truman. I really believe that strongly. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's take some calls here. Let's go to Tony, Montreal, Canada, XM Satellite. How are you, Tony?
Great, Mark. Thank you very much for taking my call. I want to talk about the death of shame in the United States. And what I mean by the death of shame is I'm directing that at the Democrats. They can lie, they can obstruct, and they have anything but corruption and criminality as their background. And they are not offering any new ideas. Jerry Nadler, I call him the Con Edison gas house sleeping giant that hasn't done anything other than sleep and pass gas Congress. It's an embarrassment. It's a death of shame. I want to just say this. You remember Dr. Butler, Gerald Butler, long-range ballistic expert from Canada that was developing the long-range cannons for Iraq at the time and Hussein. What happened? He was in Belgium and somehow 5 bullets found the back of his head. When there's the threat to Israel, Israel responds. They don't respond after you attack them. It's preemptive attacks. Mm-hmm. So if we in the United States and Canada are going to be preemptive, we have to recognize our enemies, China, Russia, Islamification of Canada, the United States, England, and Europe. These are our threats. And the first thing that Trump has to do is take out Iran. I agree with you 1,000%. The mullahs will never give you 50%. They have to leave. And by leave, I mean they have to go see the higher gods. They have to leave the planet. You cannot trust these people. They are only interested. Look, 60,000 people died in a weekend, and the people in Minnesota are what? They're protesting 2 deaths? What about the left in the United States, Antifa, saying there's 60,000 human beings in one country killed on one weekend, and they're mute. They don't know. Where's Jerry Nadler? Where's AOC? Where is the left in the United States talking about that? Aren't you supposed to protect the world, not just be so psychophantic and continuing to promote your loser party? Like, it's unbelievable. Look, the Republican Party stands for creating security on the planet. And if we want a capitalist system to exist on this planet, the United States has to be strong, a mighty military. And you know what? Countries like Canada can't be half-baked when they come to supporting the United States.
Listen, I like you. You're sounding great. You're free to call anytime you want. Just look over your shoulder. Canada's a tough place these days against patriots, that's for sure. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, the men and women in Iran, and you, the American people, red-blooded Yanks. God bless you. See you tomorrow.